promoting free speech 24/7. This is Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 14th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine this morning, a few clouds this afternoon, the high 32. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear, low 24. And then Wednesday, sunshine, kind of the same weather, high 33. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 26 and clear in Mount Kisco up in Westchester County, 29 and cloudy in Harrison over in New Jersey. And it's 30 and a couple of clouds outside our Midtown studios. We got a lot to get to as we work our way up, 6 o'clock hour. Sit-in friends in the morning. Some of the numbers coming out about congestion pricing from the MTA. It shows some interesting stuff that people's commute inside the business zone below 60th Street has been easier over the last week. Now, I will point out that January is one of the slowest months in New York City for tourists and for people coming in. So that may be what's going on, or really this $9 toll is keeping a fair amount of people away. So with congestion pricing in effect for, well, let's see, it's here we're on day 8 of this, I guess. The MTA releasing its first numbers on the controversial plan. MTA Deputy Chief External Relations Officer, that's a long title, Juliet Michelson, says there's been less traffic and quieter streets since the $9 toll kicked in 8 days ago.
Really significant trip time improvements that we are seeing on all river crossings. This is huge, 30% to 40% trip time savings across the board.
Traffic on Manhattan's busiest streets, 20 to 30% faster. MTA officials say between Monday and Friday of last week, there were 218,000 fewer cars coming into central Manhattan. That's compared to a typical week last year. That's down about 8%. The MTA hasn't revealed how much money the congestion fee is brought in. I guess they have to work out those numbers. This same Deputy Chief of External Relations Officer says congestion pricing has brought a noticeable difference.
There is less traffic, quieter streets, and I think everybody's seen it.
It now takes about 30 to 40% less time to travel between Manhattan and New Jersey via the GWB, the Lincoln Tunnel, and the Holland Tunnel. And for sure, drivers have noticed this over the last couple of days, how easy it's been to get in and out of the city.
This is not just a small incremental reduction, the way the last 10 years have seen small incremental increases. Can I predict the future? No, but this does feel fundamentally different.
Yes, so the truth is we won't know this until a month or so, but the initial numbers, the MTA, of course, celebrating. Numbers show from last Sunday to Friday between 475,000 to 561,000 cars drove into the congestion zone, a number which the MTA estimates this time of year would normally be closer to 600,000. So it's a big difference.
This is huge, 30% to 40% trip time savings across the board.
And drivers have been stunned, and by the way, I am one of them, that minus 1 day, it has been incredibly easy to get around Manhattan. Now, whether that's worth $9 or no, or not, that is for you to decide. Monday's rush hour was underway last night. Hudson Street, people trying to get home via the Holland Tunnel. And normally they say they would inch along those blocks leading up to the Holland Tunnel, but they say over the last couple of days that has not been the case.
This is unbelievable. I like this.
Are people going to continue taking the train and other options, or are they just going to start driving again?
Well, that's the question, is will people want to put up with that commute aboard a subway or a train if they've given up the commute into the city via car? Subway ridership appears to have increased compared to this time last year. There were about 3.7 million riders riders over the last week. That's compared to 3.47 million the same time in 2024. So that shows ridership was up on the subway. Same when it comes to express buses, ridership up 6% there. The MTA has not yet calculated the revenue since different vehicles pay different amounts, but the agency says it's noticed traffic, of course, is moving faster. And there are a fair amount of complaints still. Of course, the biggest one being the fact that you got to pay $9 to go into the congestion pricing zone. The other is the thought that some of that, even if you're not paying the $9, is going to be passed on to you through things like going out to a restaurant where they may charge you more because it costs them more to take in deliveries now. Andrew Ridgie, he's head of the New York Hospitality Alliance.
Delivery trucks. They have to come into the zone. They're raising prices on restaurants. They're adding surcharge to their bills that restaurants have to pay.
Yeah, and I saw one restaurant owner in the city yesterday saying that he owns 8 or 10 restaurants across the city. He says he's added $1 surcharge now to all deliveries. So any delivery that goes out to home, someone's apartment or office building, they're paying $1 extra. He says that's to make up for the costs. Lawmakers, including Staten Island Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, who visited President-elect Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. She discussed the future of congestion pricing with the president-elect, who says he's not in favor of it, and he's going to try to get rid of it.
He wants to do what he can to kill congestion pricing. If there's a legal angle, he will use it.
Now, there probably isn't much of a legal angle because you'll remember all those lawsuits ahead of congestion pricing were trying to find a legal angle that would work. None of them did. So the thought is that this would have to be an act of Congress, that President-elect Trump may not have the power himself to get rid of congestion pricing, but maybe can move Congress to do so. That would be a whole lot harder. So for now, it seems like, at least for the next while longer, congestion pricing's here to stay. And unless there's some legal maneuver I have not seen. Mayor Adams talking about this yesterday, says congestion pricing, the law of the land, and he just hopes, this is his problem, this is his fear, is that fewer people may be coming into Manhattan at all. He says he's worried it may translate to fewer people enjoying time in Manhattan because of the $9 toll.
It's the law of the land right now. And the worst thing I can do is throw more hysteria into this law of the land, particularly I don't have any control over it.
Meanwhile, the MTA, of course, jazzed. All this money's coming in. They've purchased 265 new zero-emission buses that will operate on routes across the city. They were talking about this over the weekend.
That is continuous on the path to make the whole system fully electrified in 10 or 15 years. So this is an essential contribution.
And guess where that money's coming from? Right, congestion pricing.
Thanks to congestion pricing for greening our city and, as some of the elected said, creating a more sustainable and equitable transit system.
WABC News 509. Let's go down to D.C. Former special counsel Jack Smith says the evidence he compiled against President-elect Donald Trump would have led to a conviction of the president-elect.
Early Tuesday morning, the Justice Department sent Congress the final report from Jack Smith, who resigned last week ahead of Trump's inauguration. The report covers Smith's investigation of Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, including the buildup to the January 6th Capitol riot and the riot itself. Smith also authored a second report about Trump's handling of classified documents. That report remains blocked by a federal judge, citing the charges pending against the two men who would have been Trump's co-defendants. Smith noting in the report that only Trump's election win stopped his prosecutions. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New York.
And on the other side, the special counsel who investigated Hunter Biden, criticizing President Biden.
In a final report released on Monday, David Weiss said the president cannot rewrite history after he spoke out against the case against his son when he pardoned him last month. Biden called Hunter's prosecution a miscarriage of justice. Weiss said any politician that attacks the decisions made by prosecutors and calls them politically motivated is undermining the public's confidence in the justice system. Biden was charged with tax and gun crimes before he was pardoned. I'm Mark Mayfield.
WABC News Time 510. Let's go out to Southern California with those wildfires. Crews prepared and have been for the return of high winds as they battle these deadly wildfires across Southern California. In Malibu, the mayor there, Doug Stewart, says they're worried about what the winds will bring, or what they've already brought for that matter.
It is just going to be a struggle again, because if we have another fire start, we're going to be right back where we were.
Los Angeles County Fire Chief says a Super Scooper fire fighting plane that was damaged by a drone going to return to the air today pending FAA approval. The death toll is at 24, with California Governor Gavin Newsom saying that's likely to be a whole lot more because there's about 24 people missing. The Palisades, Eaton, Hearst fires that erupted last week still going. About 92,000 people under evacuation orders. Another 89,000 are under evacuation orders. More from the Malibu mayor.
And we're also facing with having to deal with the damage and the consequences to our residents and the population from the fire last week. So we're still in some dire straits, and we'll be glad when Thursday comes, when this wind event's over.
Yeah, and FEMA's on the ground in Southern California, continues to support the recovery efforts there.
To date, we have registered over 18,000 survivors, and as of today, we have also approved $4.2 million in serious needs assistance, which provides one-time payments to individuals to help cover the cost of immediate disaster-related needs.
Not sure what the music about in the background is there, but Regional Administrator Bob Fenton says FEMA will stay in SoCal as long as it takes to assist those impacted by the wildfire. Officials in Los Angeles now announcing charges for those individuals allegedly caught looting as the wildfires raged there. District Attorney Nathan Hochman says they've charged 10 different people for looting in different evacuation zones.
These felony charges are the result of a multi-agency collaboration that has been nothing short of incredibly impressive to be able to bring these charges this quickly.
Hochman accused 2 individuals of stealing property worth at least $200,000. Jeez. District Attorney Hochman denouncing all those charged.
And these are the criminals. These are the people who are seeking to exploit this tragedy for their own benefit. These are people who have engaged in looting, arson.
And Hochman has a warning for anybody who might want to do the same thing.
And the warning shot remains. Do not go ahead and engage in looting, engage in internet scams, engage in price gouging. Do not violate evacuation orders.
Gavin Newsom, of course, continues to be in SoCal, seeing the devastation from the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire firsthand. He says he can't emphasize enough the scope of the damage, but he says the region will eventually be on the road to recovery.
14 days to finish all of the inspections so that we can begin the process of recovery. We can get the debris removed, deal with the hazardous waste.
Yeah, so they're going to take away a lot of these building rules that have been in place that make it tough to build a house in this part of Southern California, with the thought that people might want to stay around. But if the basic infrastructure's not there, you don't have schools, businesses, it's hard to imagine that people are going to want to hang around, especially in neighborhoods that were completely wiped out. By the way, they've also been seeing, as we've seen in every disaster area, whether it be Superstorm Sandy that we went through a number of years ago, all kinds of scams pop up in the days afterwards, people trying to exploit the crisis, and they're warning about that taking place here in Southern California as well.
Everybody wants to be helpful, wants to donate, and wants to be part of the solution. But before you do that, do some homework.
Yeah, a bunch of fake charities have popped up. There's also warnings about job offers for positions in fire recovery. Apparently, it's just people trying to gain your information, steal information from you.
Educate yourself before you give.
Yeah.
Get on the web and make sure the entity you're given to is actually a legitimate one.
Yeah, so those fires still burning, and those 3 big central fires, the other ones that are better contained today. And, of course, the issue now through Wednesday is the winds. They're worried that the winds could kick this fire to parts that have not seen the flames up until now. Again, the death toll at 24. We'll continue to follow this story, 77 WABC. 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Good morning, Noam Layden. Start here on the gridiron out in Arizona. The LA Rams delivered a dominant defensive performance sacking Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, an NFL playoff record tying 9 times to win 27-9 in an NFC wildcard game that was moved from Southern California to Arizona. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said some 45,000 of them made the trek from California for the game, Rams fans that is, and the 63,400-seat stadium appeared full. Rams gunslinger Matthew Stafford threw 2 touchdown passes, and the Rams looked comfortable from the first snap. LA drove for a touchdown on the opening drive and doubled a 10-0 lead by the end of the first quarter. Minnesota had a chance to earn the NFC's top seed in the final game of the regular season, but Darnold struggled in a loss at Detroit. His poor finish raises questions about his long-term future with the Vikings. And after he played this season on a 1-year deal, Darnold completed 25 of 40 passes for 245 yards, but lost 82 yards on the 9 sacks. The Vikings managed 269 total yards, and many of those came when the game was already out of hand. LA's next game will be on the East Coast. They won't have to worry about these ongoing wildfires. No, against the 2-seed Philadelphia Eagles come Sunday. Eagles open as 5.5-point favorites there. To MSG in the NBA hardwood we go, where the Knicks dropped a close one to the Detroit Pistons. The final score 124-119. Jalen Brunson had 31 points and 11 assists for the Knicks, not appearing bothered by the shoulder injury he sustained while scoring 44 points Sunday in a win over Milwaukee. Mikal Bridges added 27 and Karl Anthony Towns had 26 and 12 rebounds, despite frequently grabbing his right thumb in pain after getting hit on a drive in the first half. New York had plenty enough offense while shooting 50% from the field and 40% beyond the arc, but neither Bridges, OG Anunoby, nor anyone else really had much success on the defensive end of the ball. Up next for the Knicks, they'll visit the Philadelphia 76ers tomorrow night. The Brooklyn Nets will be back on the court tonight in Portland, getting set for a 10 p.m. tip-off against the Trailblazers. Finally, nothing doing locally in the NHL last night, but all 3 squads will be skating tonight at 7:30. The Islanders will host the Ottawa Senators, while the Devils simultaneously get going in Jersey against the Florida Panthers, all before the Rangers drop a 9 p.m. puck in Colorado against the Avalanche. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 519. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says a breakthrough in ceasefire talks is on the horizon in the Middle East.
We are closer than we've ever been.
Blinken says it's now Hamas's move to get it done. The Secretary of State cautioning that they've had these moments before, a lot of them for that matter, where the ball gets pulled away at the last minute, that Mohammed Sinwar could pull his support at any moment. Blinken went on to say, without going into detail, the deal's framework is the same as what President Biden presented back in May, which included hostages released, a halt in fighting, and an influx of humanitarian aid.
The ball is in Hamas's court, but it's very close, and we are very hopeful that we get it over the finish line, finally, after all this time. We've been working on negotiating the final details, everything that has to go into implementation, and time and again, that's been delayed or derailed by some event. But now we're at a point, as I said, where we are closer than we've ever been.
And Blinken noted that President-elect Trump's choice for the Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has been a terrific partner in all of this. President Biden, looking back at his presidency, of course, it all ends on Monday, and he talks about his work in foreign policy. He says this Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal is finally on the horizon, and he's taking credit for it.
I've said many times, we're at an inflection point. Post-Cold War period is over. A new era has begun.
Biden says he's working with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Egyptian President El-Sisi, and the Emir of Qatar to seal this latest agreement. On Russia's war in Ukraine, Biden says there's more to do, saying the U.S. has delivered aid and garnered 50 nations' support to assist Ukraine. The president also touted his work to free Americans detained in countries abroad, noting that the White House has brought home more than 75 in that process that involved multiple nations and complex negotiations.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition. We rallied 50 nations to stand with Ukraine, not just in Europe, for the first time in Asia as well. We brought home more than 75 Americans by last count, In some cases, it took months, even years of effort.
And I'm sure you'll hear more about that and the economy when the president gives essentially a goodbye speech that'll take place tomorrow night. 522, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, warning of potential copycat attacks after what happened in New Orleans on New Year's Day.
A joint statement from the agencies asked the public to report any suspicious activity. This comes after Shamsuddin Jabbar drove his car into pedestrians walking on Bourbon Street, killing 14. The statement warns that previous attackers inspired by foreign terrorist organizations who've conducted vehicle attacks in the United States and abroad have used rented, stolen, and personally owned vehicles which are easy to acquire. I'm Brian Shook.
The soon-to-be First Lady again, Melania Trump, sitting down for an interview with Fox News yesterday, says that she understands better now than she did 8 years ago about what she needs to do in the White House.
Maybe some people, they see me as just a wife of the president, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet, independent. I have my own thoughts. I have my own yes and no.
Yeah, she was quick to point out that she is her own person, doesn't always agree with what her husband says. She says her first priority will be a mom to her son, Barron, and she says she's going to be where she needs to be, whether that be the White House or in New York with her son. Her son, of course, goes to NYU or down in Palm Beach.
I gave him my advice, and sometimes he listens, sometimes he doesn't, and that's okay. I didn't have much support from them. And imagine what we could do in those years if they will rally behind me and teach the children and do protect them about the social media and their mental health.
So that was part of her program. Remember the Be Best program? She says she'll continue that now when she returns to the White House on Monday.
I will be in the White House, and, you know, when I need to be in New York, I will be in New York. When I need to be in Palm Beach, I will be in Palm Beach. But my first priority is to be a mom, to be a first lady, to be a wife. We teach them, we guide them, and then we give them the wings to fly. And I always respect Barron's yes and no and what he likes to do, where he would like to be.
Yeah, so she says Barron will split his time, of course, being at school at NYU, where he is now, and at the White House. 524, President-elect Donald Trump wants Congress to take up this one big, beautiful bill, as he calls it, that contains all of his priorities, but Republicans are split on this. Some, like Texas's Congressman Tony Gonzalez, thinks that that's the best way forward.
It is our job to make sure that that package has all the things that we have worked on.
The package, he says, will include tax cuts, changes at the border, a new energy policy. But in the Senate, some Republicans, they're not sold on it. Like Senate Majority Leader John Thune wants one bill that looks at immigration and energy to be taken up first. Then a second one that looks at tax cuts would be taken up later in the year. But Tony Gonzalez doesn't like that.
We're going to go to work, and we're going to tee up a package that's ready to go for President Trump on day one.
525, the Senate's going to start confirmation hearings of some of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. Correspondent Chris Pallone has more.
Several of those hearings likely to be contentious as questions remain about the picks' qualifications, like Donald Trump's choice to lead the Defense Department. Former Fox News host Pete Hegseth set to have his hearing Tuesday morning.
Another controversial pick is former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard to be Director of National Intelligence. Some critics claim she lacks the intelligence experience. Senators will consider Doug Collins today. He's a former Navy chaplain to lead the Department of Veteran Affairs. In addition, former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum will face questions to lead the Department of Interior.
Republicans have 53 seats in the Senate, meaning nominees can only lose the support of 2 members and still be confirmed if all Democrats vote no.
And then Pete Hegseth, that'll be the big one. They'll see if they can get him across the finish line. They've been working hard, senators on the Republican side, to do so.
Another Trump pick who will likely face an uphill battle is former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, nominated to be the Director of National Intelligence. Critics say Gabbard lacks experience in intelligence and has been accused of being sympathetic to Russia and the recently deposed regime in Syria.
Yeah, we'll watch that all play out a little bit later this morning. 526, health experts cheering a move to reduce the amount of nicotine that the government allows in cigarettes.
Could have a really amazing effect on helping people transition their level of addiction to eventually quit.
That's Jennifer Kofer. She's at Texas's MD Anderson Cancer Center says it would also cut down the number of new smokers because if there's less nicotine, then people would not be as easily addicted.
It could be a good way to prevent addiction from the beginning if there are low levels of nicotine compared to what we see right now. Strong evidence that reducing nicotine content in cigarettes to a very low level could reduce smoking and nicotine addiction.
The CDC says that smoking's linked to 480,000 deaths each year, making it the leading cause of preventable death in the U.S.
Promoting free speech 24/7. This is Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 14th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine this morning, a few afternoon clouds. It's going to be chilly, though, because there's going to be some wind, so it'll feel a little bit colder than the high, which is 32. Tonight and overnight, mostly clear, low 24. And then Wednesday, sunshine, high 33. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, 26 and clear in Mount Kisco up in Westchester County, 29 and cloudy in Harrison over in New Jersey, and it's 30 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour over in Montclair, New Jersey, where kids will be back in the classroom, all 6,000 of them, after a threat forced the entire district to be closed yesterday. Police say one man now in custody after making an online threat. He actually worked for the school district. Montclair police were alerted Sunday night that this threat was posted on social media, directed at a specific staff member at Northeast Elementary School. Police say another school staff member who was on administrative leave from the district posted the threat. Parents, they received a last-minute notice about this. It was 5 a.m. or so yesterday morning.
It was kind of opaque. We didn't really know what was happening. It was a little bit of a panic in our house.
Meanwhile, at 8 a.m. yesterday, 45-year-old Amir Doctry was arrested at a home in Philly, charged with terroristic threats. Essex County's prosecutor's office, FBI, assisting with that investigation. More charges against this guy apparently are pending. Meanwhile, parents, of course, were just totally caught off guard. They woke up to this email at around 5 a.m. saying that there were no classes.
But I think it was enough that it really scared the administration of the town. So I'm glad they decided to protect the kids.
This is not the first time something like this has happened in this town, and it's certainly happened in every town. So it's pretty horrifying knowing that there's not anything we can do as parents to keep them safe.
Yeah, good news is they figured out who this dope was, and he's been arrested. Students, they had a free day.
I was a little bit concerned, to be honest. It helped a lot that they said they neutralized the threat. I think I'm just going to spend the day doing homework, practicing for soccer and track, and trying to catch up on some work.
Wow, way more ambitious than I was. WABC News Time, 5:39. Do you remember this story? It was just a god-awful story. Ferry Williams, a student with special needs, she was strangled to death on her school bus ride to classes in New Jersey in 2023 when she was strangled by her safety harness. So she had been put on this bus. There was a bus aide who was sitting in front of her who did not see as she was strangled by the seatbelt. So she was facing a bunch of charges, and there was a split verdict in her case yesterday, which was decided by the jury. The aide's name was Amanda Davila.
How do you find Ms. Davila as to count one of the indictment, charging her with aggravated manslaughter?
Not guilty.
On Monday, Davila found not guilty of aggravated manslaughter, not guilty of reckless manslaughter, but was found guilty of endangering the welfare of a child, which means she could spend time in jail. The defense had argued that a family member of Williams improperly buckled her into the wheelchair that day. Davila told jurors she should have checked on Williams and did not follow training procedures, but she told them she didn't deserve the punishment of a lot of years behind bars. Davila and her attorney maintained that Williams, who was nonverbal, died because she was incorrectly strapped into that wheelchair. The bus's shoulder harness cutting off her airway, but prosecutors say there was no proof the family is at fault. Here was Davila's attorney after the jury made their decision yesterday.
She's upset. But, she's probably cried every day since this happened.
And the only time I didn't see her cry as much was on the stand. But in the back, and she tried to keep a stiff upper lip.
Now, of course, because there's video on all these buses, cameras, there's video of what took place. And you can see her, this little girl, before this all went down and just got awful. You don't want to watch it. Meanwhile, her mother, of course, upset. She says this school aide should have been sent to prison, or at least sent to prison for a long time anyway.
Even if she was found guilty on all counts, I still wouldn't have closure because I still don't have my child. She's gone forever. And I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, gone together in the most horrendous way forever. Davila still faces jail time on that reckless endangerment charge. 542, Mayor Adams laughing off this new poll that shows former Governor Andrew Cuomo getting way more support than him in a Democratic mayoral field. Now, this is all hypothetical because Cuomo has not jumped into the race for mayor. Adams reminding folks that he was way behind Andrew Yang at one point before beating Yang when he ran for mayor the first time.
Andrew was kicking my rear. And you know what? We don't say Mayor Yang. We say Mayor Adams. Polls don't make mayors. People do.
A survey by Progressives for Democracy in America, that's the group that did this polling, shows Cuomo getting 32% of likely Democratic voters who were asked to pick their favorite candidate. City Comptroller Scott Stringer came in next at 10%. Mayor Adams only got 6% support. Now, again, Cuomo hasn't entered the race, even though it's rumored he's going to. Mayor Adams, again, just says this is just a dopey poll.
I don't focus on polls, folks. Those who carried me, Jeff, what do I always say? Stay focused, no distractions, and grind.
Yeah. 543, some tri-state cities may be making it more difficult to keep your New Year's resolutions.
Wallet Hub broke down resolutions into components like health and financial opportunities, schools, relationships, and 53 other categories, and determined Seattle was the best resolution city. It also found Newark, New Jersey, second worst out of 182 cities, getting demerits on health, finances, school and work, bad habits, and relationships. Only Jackson, Mississippi was rated lower. New York City came in 57th, Jersey City 79th, Yonkers 90th, and New Haven, Connecticut ranked 124th. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New York.
WABC News Time 544. New York, New Jersey, pulling together to help the victims of the L.A. Southern California wildfires. New York's Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse, he was actually on the ground in Los Angeles last week describing the destruction that has impacted, of course, thousands of families.
Something has to be done to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We owe that to the public, right? That's what government's supposed to do. We're supposed to protect you. And sometimes accidents happen, but some of them are preventable.
So several local eateries we've been watching on, we told you about some of them yesterday, holding fundraisers while New Yorkers and New Jerseyans are digging through their closets to give clothes or reaching into their pockets to give money to the ground organizations. Orange County Executive Steve Newhouse saying that, just be careful about who you give to, but give if you can. And remember, some of these people, really, the last thing they have is the shirt on their back, right? They had to run out of their homes with nothing and have nothing at all now, so they can use everything.
Bottom line is, it is a terrible thing, and it's a ongoing thing, and there's lives that are on the line right now. There's lives that have been lost, and there's emergency responders that are doing dangerous stuff.
Yeah, we'll continue to follow that story. We were telling you earlier on, 24 dead. They think that number will rise, and the winds are back, which is going to fan this fire just a little bit more, though they were able to get more of these fires contained, at least the three big ones yesterday, so the hope is these winds don't send these flames to places they haven't been before. 545, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Alec.
Well, thank you, Noam Layden. Start here on the NFL gridiron out in Arizona. The LA Rams delivered a dominant defensive performance, sacking Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, an NFL playoff record, and tying 9 times to win 27-9 in an NFC wildcard game that was moved from Southern California to Arizona. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said some 45,000 Rams fans made the trek from California for the game, and the 63,400-seat stadium appeared to be full. Rams gunslinger Matthew Stafford threw 2 touchdown passes, and the Rams looked comfortable from the first snap. LA drove for a touchdown on the opening drive and built a 10-0 lead by the end of the first quarter. Minnesota had a chance to earn the NFC's top seed in the final game of the regular season, but Darnold struggled in a loss at Detroit. His poor finish raises questions about his long-term future with the Vikings after he played this season on a one-year deal. Darnold completed 25 of 40 passes for 245 yards, but lost 82 yards on the 9 sacks. The Vikings managed 269 total yards, and many of those came when the game was already out of hand. LA's next game will be on the East Coast against the 2-seed Philadelphia Eagles come Sunday. Eagles opening up as 5.5-point favorites there. To MSG and the NBA hardwood we go, where the Knicks dropped a close one to the Detroit Pistons. The final score 124-119. Jalen Brunson had 31 and 11 for the Knicks, not appearing bothered by that shoulder injury he sustained while scoring 44 points Sunday in a win over Milwaukee. Up next for the Knicks, they'll visit the Philadelphia 76ers tomorrow night. The Brooklyn Nets will be back on the court tonight in Portland, getting set for a 10 p.m. tip-off against the Trailblazers. Finally, nothing doing locally in the NHL last night, but all 3 squads will be skating tonight. At 7:30, the Islanders will host the Ottawa Senators, while the Devils simultaneously get going in Jersey against the Florida Panthers, and all before the Rangers drop a 9 p.m. puck in Colorado against the Avalanche. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. Congestion pricing in effect for 8 days now. The MTA is celebrating the fact that Manhattan's busiest streets, they say, were 20 to 30% faster for drivers over the last 8 days. Of course, you had to pay $9 for that. They say there were 218,000 fewer cars coming into central Manhattan's business district compared to this time last year. And they say people, for the most part, drivers reported being happier about how they were getting around, that speeds were faster. But, of course, there's a ton of people still very upset. They don't want to pay this $9. That's why they're leaving their cars at home. Hudson Valley Congressman Mike Lawler, one of the people who is pushing the Trump administration when they get into office to revoke this plan as soon as possible.
Explore every feasible avenue, both through the executive, the legislature, and the courts, to get this program killed. It is a scam. This is not about congestion. It is about revenue.
Lawler, one of a number of New York Republicans who met with President-elect Trump at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend, and they say Trump's on board on getting rid of congestion pricing.
This system is horribly managed. The arrogance of its leadership obviously is disgraceful. And the governor is so inept and so incompetent in dealing with this.
But it's interesting when you talk to drivers, they're not really sure that President-elect Trump will be able to get rid of congestion pricing.
I think he's got bigger problems than worrying about New York City, so I don't think he'll do anything for it.
He'll try. I know Governor Hochul will fight him on it. You know, that's why she rushed to get it in before he took office. He'd be up against a battle with that, so we'll see. Hopefully he can, but...
He's going to reverse it somehow, and I think Mayor Adams is also the worst mayor we've ever had. He let it go through...
And in Jersey City, they're so upset about the fact that they are putting this toll on New Jersey drivers after paying, of course, for the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, that Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop has been proposing this reverse congestion pricing toll to charge drivers from New York. And yesterday he was talking about the fact that he's serious about this, that they want to charge drivers coming in with New York plates from New Jersey to go into Jersey City. And drivers, of course, find this, they're mad and they find it comical at the same time.
You should see the traffic in the malls, all New York license plates. So he should have a reverse toll.
That would be, what's that expression, tit for tat? You know what I mean? I wouldn't like it either.
Well, it makes a good point. The mall, one of them, the Newport Mall, right on the other side of the Holland Tunnel, gets a lot of New York plates. It's a big shopping mall, and maybe he'd be hurting business. But others say, no. If you're going to toll us to come into New York City, let's toll you to come into New Jersey.
It would only be fair, but for the average person, it just stinks. The MTA is making a ton of money.
I don't think that's right, too, because you see, right there again, I'm getting hit. It's hard on the poor man. I'm not a rich man, I'm poor.
Exactly. I mean, really. And in the policy paper, the mayor who's running, by the way, I should point out, Steve Fulop is running for governor. So he says the Garden State should impose its own fees on New York drivers, and he said that would be dedicated revenue source for the light rail and path expansion projects. Bring it back here into the city, the NYPD. They're searching for a moped-riding, knife-wielding robber they've dubbed the Haggler after midnight. Police say he's responsible for 11 overnight robberies in Brooklyn and Queens over the past few months, in which he negotiates, that's why they call him the Haggler, in which he negotiates with victims in English or Spanish over which items he's going to steal from them. Well, that sounds like a decent guy.
We call him the Haggler after midnight. So often at times if the victim produces a property that they're going to give up, he often says, no, I don't want that. I want that. So he'll choose.
Yeah, so this jerk is after cash or electronics. Recently pulled a knife to the throat of one of his victims. He says police say he targets Hispanic males ages 20 to 40 who are walking by themselves after midnight. So that's how he gets the midnight part.
He definitely targets all Hispanic males ages 20 to 40 who are walking by themselves after midnight.
I think I just said that.
The emotional trauma, the fear that it creates, just innocent individuals going home from work, being targeted, more brazen, more bold, more violent.
Yeah, so they have lots of pictures of this guy, but they haven't been able to catch up with them. Remember this police-involved shooting we told you about over the weekend? There's speculation that a language barrier may have played a part in this police-involved shooting in the Bronx. Some residents say cops should know how to give basic police commands in Spanish.
Especially those specific, put it down, like abajo, put it, those little words might help the person to understand what they're saying.
Police received a 911 call about a robbery at an apartment building. This was in the Mott Haven section Sunday evening. It seems the man who made the call went to confront the person who had stolen his air conditioner with a knife. After he refused their orders to drop his knife, one of the officers shot him in the torso. The 32-year-old was taken to the hospital in stable condition. Thankfully, he's still alive. The NYPD says it's investigating, but has body cam of this incident. 5:54, Governor Murphy establishing a Target Zero Commission to end traffic fatalities in New Jersey. Held a press conference yesterday in Trenton. He says more than 690 New Jersey families lost a loved one in a traffic incident just in the past year alone, and he wants to bring those numbers down.
And these are not simply statistics. They are tragedies that no family will ever truly recover from. More than 690 New Jersey families lost a loved one in a traffic accident in the past year alone.
Now, we had that program here. You'll remember Mayor de Blasio instituted a similar program. It worked for a while, but then the numbers ticked up again. So they're trying this similar program in New Jersey. The goal of the Target Zero Commission is to eliminate these traffic incidents, all of them, by 2040.
We are taking a crucial step toward ensuring that a walk, a drive, or a bike ride never again results in an empty seat at the table.
While we're in New Jersey, there's a number of people who are really upset, probably thousands, about this potential TikTok ban, which could happen come as early as Sunday. One of them is Skip Chapman, who was talking to News 12. He says that he's used TikTok to sell his home care products like deodorants and that kind of thing. And he says TikTok's been huge for him. Here's the pitch that he does.
Look at how this goes on. Almost looks like a cream or a lotion. That's because of the coffee oil in the product. These coupons that we're doing are only until 5 of, and then we're going to pull those.
Yeah, so it's him and about 6 other people who work on these products, and he says TikTok has really elevated the sales for his skin products, and he says if it goes away, this will not be good for him. He needs the money coming in from TikTok sales.
Jumped on, started doing this. We doubled our sales in one day, then tripled the sales. Then I said, okay, now I get it. 2 days a week was enough. 3, 4, now I go 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah, so he says if it does go away, business will still go on, but he's going to have to pay for his advertising.
What you just saw here, there's $0 invested. I have no ad spend on TikTok. There's no money out of my pocket other than their percentage for using the platform.
Yeah, so he was not a believer in TikTok until he started using it, and he says it's been great. So he says he'll go back to old-fashioned sales. I mean, old-fashioned meaning like buying spots on Facebook, that kind of thing.
What I can do is I can market to the 10,000 people on my email list. I can use my website. I can use Amazon. I can use Facebook. But that's all going to cost a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, so he's worried about what will happen if this ban takes place.